this matchup, the 2-3 seed in the West, Minnesota, Denver, I think potentially the most fascinating second round matchup. These two teams played last year in the playoffs. And there's, I think, a lot to get into. Before we do that, real quick, just to win the West, the Nuggets right now are the odds-on favorite at -115. Thunder at +330, Wolves +450, Mavs +700, Clips +1000. Obviously, the health of Kawhi Leonard for the rest of these playoffs is a concern there. Luka's a little banged up as well. That second round series between the Thunder and whoever wins Dallas Mavs is going to be fascinating. But let's get into the Nuggets and Wolves and do a little preview of this series.
My first question for you on this, compared to the series last year, where Minnesota did not have Jaden McDaniels or Naz Reid, that these guys split the season series this year 2-2. I want to get into the specific impact of those two guys, but initially, what is the key thing that those guys are going to bring this year that they did not have last year?
I think you have to match up with Denver with size, and Naz is a big player. He's a 4, can play some 5. So they have a third big here. Cat's coming off a really good series in that first round. Gobert defensively has been dominant. So the interior size is there. On the perimeter, McDaniels, his size on Jamal Murray. If you go back to last year in the playoffs, 2 things. Jamal Murray was awesome in that series. They didn't really have anybody that could guard him. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I thought, took a huge step forward this year, just totally embracing his role as a pest and a wing defender, point of attack defender. He wasn't that player last year. And so I think those two guys are big keys in this series with Murray. The second thing on Murray, last year, regardless of who was matched up with Jokic, they primarily played a heavy drop coverage. That's part of the reason Murray in that 2-man action got so many pull-up jumpers. There was a couple times where they brought the big up. He just dumped it off to Jokic. They got either the France cut out of the corner or Aaron Gordon the dunker spot. So I would expect them to cross-match as they've done almost exclusively. I want to go through each game in a second, but I would expect them to cross-match. Gobert on Gordon, Cat on Jokic. Naz Reid will get some action on Jokic. Kyle Anderson may get some action on Jokic. I'll get into that in a second. And they will put McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker on Jamal Murray. Now, key for that, Tommy, is trying to get a different body on Jamal Murray. So maybe set a ball screen with Mike Conley's guy. Maybe set a ball screen with Anthony Edwards' guy, although he's a really good defender. Like getting McDaniels off of Murray, going off the ball, setting a pin down into the dribble handoff. Like they've got to get the bodies off of Murray, get him space separation early in their actions. I think that's a huge key.
So in the Phoenix series, this was mentioned by a bunch of people. You know, I think we all know how good a defensive player Jay McDaniels is. Screen navigation in particular, he was excellent in that series. With the way that Denver runs these actions, is that something that you sort of think, is there anything that they do that would sort of negate his ability to do that in your feeling? Or is this kind of like, this is just a different
I don't necessarily, I'm not suggesting, by the way, that they're going to automatically switch.
Yeah.
Right. If they screen on the ball with a different defender to get to Jokic, to then get to Jokic, or off the ball screen with a different, he'll pass the ball, cut down the middle of the lane, then get a pin down, come back up towards the top, go into his left hand with a dribble handoff, right? So I think Jaden McDaniel's screen navigation, Nickeil Alexander-Walker's screen navigation, all of that stuff is super important for the Wolves because I don't expect them to just concede the switch, right?
Yeah.
I would expect those guys to be hungry to be on the ball with Jamal Murray. Jamal Murray, huge key, hit 2 incredibly difficult and big shots, 2 game winners in that series. Overall, didn't shoot the ball particularly well. So I think his offensive production is a huge key. Michael Porter Jr. has been playing exceptional since the All-Star break. That carried over into round 1. Real quick, his numbers, post-All-Star break in the regular season, 18 a game, 51% from the field, 40% from 3. That was a little bit of an uptick. He averaged about 15.9 pre-All-Star break and a shade under 40% from 3. In that first round series, insane numbers, almost 23 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, 55% from the field, 48% from 3. So I'm looking and thinking about matchups, and obviously some of this stuff they did during the regular season. You would expect Jaden McDaniels to be on Murray to start. I would assume Anthony Edwards is going to be on Michael Porter Jr., and I would assume Mike Conley is going to be on KCP. That's, I think, my expectation of how they match up to start.
Denver, they average 40% of rebounding their own misses against the Lakers. As we sort of look at this different matchup from a rebounding perspective, what do you feel like Minnesota has to do differently to not let them just cook there?
I think this is to me a little bit of the chess match. Is how do you get Gobert away from the basket, particularly if, like I expect them to do and like they've done in the past, particularly if they're cross-matched, right? The one shot the teams have shown they're very comfortable allowing is an Aaron Gordon three-pointer. So just spacing him out to the corner to shoot a three, and that, I don't necessarily think that's going to get him away from the basket. So maybe there's more involvement with Aaron Gordon, setting screens on the ball, setting screens off the ball, just anything to keep Gobert involved so he's just not back there in center field to rebound the basketball, contest at the rim, clog up the paint, all that stuff. That to me is how do we move Gobert around when he's cross-matched on Gordon? That's an important part of this. The other thing, I just want to go through these games real quick because if my sort of quick research this morning holds true, they played the fourth game of the season. Minnesota handed Denver their first loss. I believe that was the only game where everyone important played. Murray was 5 for 16. Porter was 2 for 11. Then they played 3 times between March 19th and April 10th. March 19th, if you remember that game, no Gobert, no Cat. Kyle Anderson guarded Jokic. He went for 35. Michael Porter had a big second half. Nuggets ended up winning by 3. Then they play again on March 29th. Minnesota wins that game. No Karl-Anthony Towns. That was when he was still coming back from his injury. No Jamal Murray in that game. Then Denver won April 10th. Karl-Anthony Towns did not play. Jokic goes for 41, 11, and 7 on 16 of 20 shooting. The other thing I found was interesting. Jokic, 4 games against the Wolves this year, and it was the least amount of assists per game against any opponent in the NBA. He only averaged 4.3 assists per game. So again, a lot of his assists, particularly in the half court, are off those cuts, right? Gobert is back there. That's part of it, right? Part of the cross-matching thing is we're going to keep Gobert there. Jokic then can operate as a scorer against a Karl-Anthony Towns or against a Naz Reid or against a Kyle Anderson. They're in some ways forcing his hand. So how he gets everyone else involved in this series beyond just the 2-man action with Jamal Murray, I think is a big key. So all of those delay cuts, the back screens, the movement stuff they run with him at the elbow or the high post, figuring out ways to score out of that, I think is going to be a huge key as well.
Do you think we're going to see a lot of Gordon on Ant?
I wouldn't be surprised. That's I think they have some options with how they match up. If they do opt to do that, you would expect Porter Jr. or KCP to kind of be on Cat. Do they try to punish that matchup? That's important. I think overall Denver's been a great defensive team, right? So the other point is the Anthony Edwards pick and roll. Ant had a phenomenal series last year. He had a phenomenal in round 1 against the Nuggets. He had a phenomenal series this year in round 1 against Phoenix. So one of the things I was thinking about this morning is just Jokic liking to be up, particularly against a guy like Anthony Edwards. How and where they set high ball screens so that Edwards, like Dame does, can sort of attack in space and try to get around Jokic. And then if he is up, Gobert making plays out of the short roll, how Denver rotates around that, super important as well. And look, they're going to play game 1 on Saturday. Yeah. We're going to get some data. We're going to get some info.
Yeah.
And this thing may change. I may be way off on all this. I'm not even predicting anything. I'm just giving my thoughts. This has been our DraftKings Sportsbook segment. Happy Thursday. You can earn a bigger bonus bet with every three made in an NBA game when you place a pregame first three-pointer bet on any Tuesday or Thursday game of your choice. Just opt in, place a qualifying bet, and for every three that's hit, you stand to score a bigger bonus bet. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code JJ when you place an NBA pregame first three-pointer bet on any game of your choice today. That's code JJ only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. See dkng.co/bball for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. 1 token per customer. Pre-game first three-point bet required to earn credit for reward for each three-pointer scored in the game. Minimum bet and max reward varies. Tokens expire at the start of the final NBA game each day when offered. Reward issued as one bonus bet that expires 168 hours after issuance.